Lisa Briggs is here to answer your plant questions. 270-9933, the number to call. Good to see you again.
Good to see you guys, too.
We'll start with Pat in Sun Prairie. Hi, Pat, what's your question?
Hi. I have a climbing rose bush that is at least 10 feet tall, and I want to cut it way down. When is the best time to cut it down?
I would wait until next spring, Pat, because you're going to get some dieback from wherever your new cuts are. And so it's best to wait until the spring, and then when you see the new buds start to pop, you can trim it back then, and that way it's a good time for the rose to be pruned.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for calling. What pests are you seeing right now? What are people coming in with?
Japanese beetles.
It's that time of year already?
It is that time of year, yeah. Japanese beetles are the #1 thing that we're seeing right now as far as insect pests are concerned.
And what do you do with them?
Well, you can treat your soil. That will help cut down the grub stage of them. They spend about 85% of their life in the ground. But if you've got adults, there are a couple of options. You can use a spray called Japanese beetle killer.
Well, it's
super effective.
Specific?
Yeah.
And it will not affect anything else around?
No, it's an insecticide.
Okay, okay.
So, yeah, and it's made with pyrethrin, which is out of chrysanthemums, so it's relatively low toxic. Wouldn't call it organic, but...
And what do they really go after?
Everything. Roses, grapes, green beans, trumpet vines, birch trees, linden trees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they have a very wide palette.
Oh. All right, let's go to Carol now in Oregon. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
What's your question?
Yes, I have 2 clematis vines, and they were blossoming and looking beautiful, and then all of a sudden, all the flowers fell off, and now there's no flowers. I was wondering what happened.
Most clematis will have a bloom period, Carol, so they're going to flower, and then when they're done, they're done. You want to just leave those on there. Actually, some of those big flowering clematis make a really pretty seed head, and then you'll do your pruning back in the fall or next spring.
Okay.
But that's typical.
It is typical.
Yes.
All right. Oh,
Very few things bloom for weeks and weeks and weeks.
But what does?
All right.
Coneflowers.
Well, thank you very much.
I guess.
There's some
you,
things.
Carol.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get to the calls.
Okay, we've got Nancy in Wanakee. Hi, Nancy. What's your question?
I have a question on iris. We haven't dug up our iris bed for about 5 years, and it's too full right now, and it needs to be dug up and separated and replanted again so they'll produce blooms. Is it too early in mid-August to do that? We're not young anymore, and it takes a long time to do. And with this hot, dry weather, my thoughts were, it might be too early to do it. I know it should be really done in September, October, but
actually, mid-August to early September is a fine time to do that. When you make your cuts, when you divide them up, make sure that you let them dry for a little bit so those cut ends callus off, and then when you replant, make sure that you plant them close to the surface because they don't like to flower if they're buried too deep.
Okay. Let's go to Tom in Middleton. Hi, Tom. What's your question?
Lisa, my tomato plants, the leaves are turning yellow on the bottom. Am I watering them too much, or?
Sounds like one of the tomato blights. Could be early blight, could be late blight. If the leaves are turning yellow on the bottom, but the plants are continuing to grow and be good up top, just take those leaves off. Be careful when you water. Try to keep the foliage as dry as possible. Early blight, the tomatoes will continue to flower and fruit.
Okay.
Okay. All right, our next question. Nancy in Stoughton. Hi, Nancy. What is your question?
I have a butterfly plant, that one that's orange. When is a good time to transplant that, in the fall or spring?
Very early in the spring, Nancy, as soon as you start to see it come up. And remember that butterfly plants, those Asclepias, are super slow to emerge.
Yes.
So maybe you want to put like a little garden stake or something where they are so that you remember where they are. So then when you first see them come up, then you dig them out and move them.
That's always important because right at the beginning of the year, you don't know what's coming up and what's not.
Right, and that's one that's really easy since it's so late to cut it in half.
All right, we are out of time. Thank you all for calling in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back with the final check of your forecast.